Hello, we're back, and it's unexpectedly a day later than I foresaw it being, as yesterday was bank holiday in Ireland, so I didn't really do any work, which is fine. It's a holiday, you're meant to take it, so I did a little bit of work, but to be completely truthful, I did not feel there was enough really to talk about in the video, or at least my mind wasn't really geared towards talking about anything specific yesterday, and I think I did collectively it was about an hour and a half of work, and they were all calls. And on reflection, the calls were fine, but there really wasn't too much interesting from yesterday. It was pretty standard. They were a combination of intro sales calls, and one was just like a general intro to another person who runs a business, and it was fine. But nothing's really going to come of them, and yeah, I mean, today is day one of the week basically, so hence why we're doing the video today. But I'll be really honest, today has been quite a slow day in places, and I feel one of the things I've literally just sent a client, sorry, I'm kind of just tidying up as I go here. One of the things I just sent a client was an exercise called drainers and gainers, which I've mentioned to quite a lot of people recently. I think I'm almost foreshadowing my own personal need to do this, because I'm always just curious to see what comes up when you write things down. I've talked about this a little bit in the sense of journaling and whatnot, but drainers and gainers, one column. So take an A4 sheet of paper, draw a line down the middle. On one side you put drain, on the other side you put gain. Left hand side, or whichever side says drain, these are the things that you feel like are draining your energy, or things that you're finding challenging at the moment. And then the opposite side, you've got things that you're gaining energy from. So again, obvious stuff might be like sleeping well, or obvious stuff might be like eating well, whatever it might be. And then gain or drain, might be things that, again, it could be very personal stuff to you. It could be things within the business. Like I remember in the past, a drainer for me was always anything relating to legal stuff within an agency. So, you don't really want to be talking about a legal contract for 3 hours on a Tuesday morning, but sometimes you have to do it. So anyhow, that's something that came up for me today that I'm probably going to do in the context of the business at some point soon. So when I do it, I'll share my thoughts about it and what comes up for me to an extent. But other than that, yeah, today was a bit slow in places. I wonder why. Actually, I feel like I kind of know why to an extent. So I used to track my time. When I first started the business, I was tracking my time pretty religiously, and I mean, I more or less stopped. I felt like it got to a point. I stopped just before Christmas, or stopped just before December, because I felt like it had gotten to a point where I had a pretty good pulse on where my time was going. And at that point in time, I felt like, okay, let's just run with what we've got. Not great, truthfully, not a very wise move, and I think, frankly, it's a mistake. So I use Clockify for what it's worth. It's a very basic tool. It's free. I think you can upgrade, but you don't really need to. So, for example, this is now being tracked. I mean, this is under. I'll categorize this as business development / marketing, for FlexOps. But really, it's not. It's kind of like a personal thing for me. But anyhow. Since it's in the middle of the day, I thought it would be worthwhile to track it. But my point is, again, I encourage, and this is maybe where I strayed off the path a little bit, I encourage agencies with people, so a team, to do this quite religiously, because it's important to understand what's happening within your business. Ironically, despite the fact I'm running a business, you kind of forget it from time to time. I think I mentioned this loosely before, where I was like, sometimes you don't feel much different, or sometimes there are days where it doesn't feel any different to just working within a bigger team, and that you come in and you do your work and you almost sign off and that's it. It depends what you're doing in the day. But if you have a client heavy day, I mean, you could have a client heavy day working in Google, it doesn't, it's no different in that sense. today is not one of those days. Today is one of those days where I'm like, there are random business things that I feel I need to do or should be doing or have done, not really client work. So anyway, the point I was making there is that I'm time tracking now to get a bit more clarity on what's really happening, particularly in days like this. So I'm going to a client on first client session of February will be next week. I'm going to go to London for the day. I will track the time on that, but it's essentially programmed in. Like, a percentage of the day is going to be attributed to travel, a percentage of the day is going to be attributed to the session with the client. I'll probably have lunch with them, and I might stay a little bit longer than anticipated. But that really is the day. I'll do some admin / probably emails as I'm traveling, and that's it. There won't be any shocks there. Whereas today, things just creep up and things just disappear in terms of time. It's also really interesting to me. If I look at what I did this afternoon specifically, I spent 20 minutes reconfiguring and setting up that time tracking tool. I spent an hour on LinkedIn messages alone. So that's going back to some people that I had an idea in terms of how to retarget them or send another message to them. That's going to new people that have just connected with me and sending a voice note to them. That's messaging or following up with people who've messaged me. And that's also, I did a little, again, quick video I say quick video, it took 10 minutes, but I did a video for someone specifically on there for some feedback for something they'd asked for, just as a bit of a favor, I suppose. That's an hour, Now that's longer than normal, but it's still a chunk of time. An hour and 15, the last thing I did today, sales pipeline. So I talked about this last week, but I kind of highlighted 10 to 15 key actions towards people at a certain point in the pipeline, and I did 3 of those in an hour and 15. So that's pretty standard. I mean, again, these aren't just kind of bland, vanilla emails going out to people. These are well thought out, structured emails going out at a very specific time for good reason, that contain certain things catered towards the person who's receiving it. I made that sound way more complicated than it is, but basically 3 emails were sent out today as follow-ups, and each of them contained something specific to the person receiving it that I felt would be valuable to them. But I tracked the time on that, and that's the guts of 3 hours of work. And honestly, I'm glad I did it, because if I hadn't done it, I'd be sitting here thinking, geez, the afternoon really got away from me. What did I do? So anyway, time tracking is very much a go, and I'm very curious to see how the next couple of months, so the rest of Q1, how that goes. I'm going to stick to quite a tight process in relation to it. So that'll be good for me to do. And yeah, what else? I mean, I say what else? I think that's more than enough, honestly. Just feeling like a little bit slow this morning, and I set up the time tracking thing in the afternoon. Had an interesting call this morning with someone. It's essentially a business that they have a tool for helping agencies operate and run their business. And I thought that was quite interesting. The owner seemed pretty open and honest about who he works with, which I appreciated, because a lot of what I talk to agencies about is exactly that, being very honest with yourself about who you can actually help and who you can work with. It's something I'm very passionate about myself. I've mentioned about, I don't really want to or have no intention to work with people just for the sake of it. They have to be the right fit. So that was a good call this morning. I think sometimes it can be, it's refreshing to speak to someone that thinks in a similar way to you. You don't want to do that all the time. You want to be able to speak to people that have a different perspective, for sure. But in that specific case, it was nice. So that's today. Time tracking is the big thing that'll probably feature in the headline of this video. But I don't think there's too much else of interest. The rest of this week is going to follow suit, in the sense that it's going to be largely business development and marketing activity, which is nice. Got some client prep to do for next week, and I'll probably give most of my clients a ring tomorrow and see how they're getting on, check in with them, make sure they're all good. Usually something comes up in those calls. That'll be interesting to talk about. We'll see. I would hedge my bets and say that 2 out of the half dozen clients will have something that will come up for them. The rest will be ticking along, they'll be fine. There's usually a couple of things. That's not anything, any reflection negative of the client. It's quite simply things come up all the time as an agency owner that you might want to talk to someone about. So yeah, that's where we're at with things. I kind of enjoyed that. I mean, even again, I've said this a few times. This is a very nice way for me to reflect and let some stuff go out of my head in relation to the business. It's also quite nice when you do it at this time of day, because it's 4 o'clock now, so I'm gonna be signing off for the early evening to spend it with the family anyhow. So yeah, you kind of want to get rid of anything that might be looming or hanging around off the back of a day. So yeah, that's the update for today. Main theme is time tracking, and yeah, let's not get too bogged down in ourselves just because you had a slower morning. I suppose might be a nice message to take from today, because it's just one morning. It's not gonna define how the business performs for the next 2 years. So yeah, anyway, that's that. I'll check in tomorrow once I've chatted to the clients and see if anything interesting come up. I think there probably will be. Oh, and the newsletter, I've mentioned it before, the newsletter will be going out, so if you're subscribed to that, get ready. It should be a good one. I'm interested to see how people find the topic from January that I've picked. So anyway, good stuff. I'll chat to you tomorrow.